Hey, it's August 10th and we find ourselves in Jeremiah chapters 10 through 13. When I was younger, I watched a TV show called The A-Team. It was about 4 ex-military guys who had been accused of a crime that they did not commit. Instead of standing trial and being falsely convicted, they chose to run. While they were on the run, they would always find people in need that were powerless to save themselves. The A-Team would come up with a plan that seemed impossible and even crazy, but it always worked, and the helpless people were saved. It was 80s television. The leader, Hannibal, would always say at the end of the episode, "I love it when a plan comes together." God has a plan of salvation that he offers to all humanity. His people, in the midst of it, couldn't always see what God was doing or how his plan was working out. But later, we have always been able to look back and see that God was in control every step of the way. His plan is always coming together, as we will see in today's passage. In chapter 10, God reminds Judah how powerless idols are compared to him. They are made by people. They can't move on their own, so people have to carry them. Verse 5 says, "Their idols are like scarecrows in a cucumber field, and they cannot speak. They have to be carried, for they cannot walk. Do not be afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither is it in them to do good." They are not gods who can help them do good or evil, or help their enemies do good or evil against them. And they are certainly not like the one all-powerful God who created everything. God again grieves the destruction that is about to happen to Judah. He compares it to losing his own children, and he again places the responsibility for it on the religious leaders. Verse 21 says, "For the shepherds are stupid and do not inquire of the Lord. Therefore they have not prospered, and all their flock is scattered." Jeremiah again states that God's judgment will come from the north, referring to Babylon, and he asks God to punish the nations that are bringing harm on Judah as well. In chapter 11, God promises to bring about all that he has said to Israel. Because they have continually sinned against God's laws, even though God consistently warned them of the consequences, Judah had reached the limits of his patience with them. In chapter 12, Jeremiah joins the list of people in the Bible who ask God, "Why do the wicked prosper?" And in verses 5 through 17, God answers. He first says, or asks Jeremiah, "How could you possibly understand the reason, since you can barely understand what happens on earth?" Then God tells Jeremiah he will punish the wicked, and that they're not getting away with anything. And in chapter 13, God uses a ruined loincloth to represent the fall of Judah, and filled wine jars to represent the conflict God would allow Judah's kings, priests, prophets, and people to have against each other, as if in a drunken brawl. And God reaffirms how he will scatter the Jews from the land into the surrounding nations. So what can we take away from today's passage? First, we can't trust anything humans make to save us. Idols, man-made religions, and philosophies are powerless to free us from our sin. Only God can do that, and has done that through Christ. Second, there is a limit to God's patience. He is not patient with our sin forever. And third, while it may seem like the wicked get away with sin now, they ultimately don't. God does punish sin, guaranteed. My prayer for us today is that we would trust in God alone and what Christ did on the cross to forgive us and free us from sin. And that we trust in God's plan of salvation, that it's going exactly as he planned, especially when we don't see or understand how he's bringing it about in the moment. I love it when a plan comes together. If you haven't done so already, please download our Through the Bible reading plan at HesperiaCommunityChurch.org/throughthebible. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.